The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Howdy ho, everybody. Coming to you cordless. It's Monday night, August 26th, 2024. It's 11 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 8 p.m. on the West Coast, 11 a.m. in Singapore, 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Sydney, Australia, and here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time. I'm Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night, episode number 152 if you're keeping score at home. Hope you guys had a nice weekend. I did. It's my wife's birthday today, and she's 65 years old. She got a Medicare card. Who would have thunk it? God bless LBJ, and don't forget, Christopher Palestine. Yay! Oh my God! All right, so what do we got going on here? I'll tell you, we got it going on. That's what we got. Let me tonight. It's Phone Fun Monday. You call in. Please do. This is the show where I encourage you to call in. We don't have a guest tonight. We usually don't book guests on Mondays because there's a lot of news over the weekend. And when we started this 152 shows ago, I thought we would end up doing Thursday nights as phone-in night. No, it's Monday because we have a 3D weekend. I got a lot of news. Seriously, it's unbelievable the shit I collect over the weekend. And we got a lot. And tonight especially, we do this. I do what I call part 3, which is usually like the science and paranormal and UFO news. Tonight, that's pretty much the same as the regular news. I got it half and half. So we got a big show. If you want to call in, there's 3 ways you can do it. You can call in with your webcam. Talkers Magazine says this is the first talk show in America where you can call in via video. And you do that. It's very simple. You go to a page on our website. Now, stick with me for a second. The page is jimatnight.com/call. It's in the URL's in the crawl on the bottom of the screen here. jimatnight.com/call, and you push the big blue button at the top of the page. You get to check the camera and mic hooked up to your device. And needless to say, you have to access this webpage on the device you have your camera on, and you press join at the bottom of the screen, and you're in the queue. It's really simple. One of the first people ever called in on the show, our longtime radio friend from David from San Francisco. He said it was harder to find the website than was to actually call in. That's true. It's easy. You can call in, so you can call in with your camera. If you don't want to be on the screen, you can call in just like in a regular radio call-in show with your phone. And the dial-in number is 563-999-3435. That's on the bottom of the screen here too in the crawl. 563-999-3435. And if you want to just send a text message in real time, we're doing this live. Yeah, I know if you're watching it, if you're watching this on Tuesday morning, it's not live. But if you're watching it on YouTube and Rumble right now, it's live. And that text number is 408-458-5088. That's 408-458-5088. That's going to be crawling at the bottom of the screen during the entire show. Please have at it. We'd love to hear from you. So, no guest tonight. It's up to you. A lot of news tomorrow night and Wednesday. I'm taking the night off. Okay, so the deal is, tomorrow night I had a family obligation. Wednesday night I'm taking off because it never occurred to me, and we did this once last August too, although we were just getting started. No, there's no guests because everyone's on vacation. So I said, screw it. So we're taking both Tuesday and Wednesday night off. Thursday, Jazz Shaw, our friend from hotair.com, is going to be here. We're going to be talking specifically about Luis Elizondo's new book called Imminent, about his time in the UFO office working in the Pentagon, uh, both trying to uncover and cover UFOs because they asked him sometimes to do that, and he got tired of doing it, which is the reason he quit. So he's got a new book out. I think the book's explosive. He basically comes right out and says, "We have alien bodies. We have crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft. We had them for years. Everyone in the government's always been covering this up." I mean, the book is, in the sense that it's from a guy who worked from the Pentagon. It's explosive. Now that said, I'm curious to see what Jazz is going to say too. Also, if I'm right, Jazz knows Lou Elizondo. I've never talked to the guy, but I think Jazz has. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring him on here. At this point, I assume that Elizondo's so flooded with booking interview requests. I didn't even try. I have not even tried to get through. I might later on, maybe in a couple months. Also, after all the hubbub dies down. Last night, that was Sunday night, News Nation did a 2-hour special on this book. Ross Coulthart, uh, a fantastic Australian journalist, he interviewed Elizondo, and it was I love Coulthart's book. He wrote a book called In Plain Sight a few years ago about the whole UFO phenomena. I was a little. My only complaint with this interview is that he they basically just went through the stuff that was already in the book, and but and they talk about this during the interview. This book had to be vetted ahead of time by the Department of Defense, which basically has to vet all books written by people who have security clearances on any subject. And supposedly it took them a year to vet it, which is an extraordinarily long time. And so there's possibility that because it's the interview's done in real time, and Elizondo's a master now at picking his words of saying exactly the right thing. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff the guy can't talk about because of his security oath. Because of that, they might have had to gone through the subjects they're going to cover, maybe not in detail, but generally before the interview even started. So I can't really blame or Coulthart if the whole thing came off a little canned. Because it might have had to have been just to do it. But at any rate, I recommend the book. If you're into the UFO thing at all, and you know I am, and we talk about it a lot here, and Jazz is too. Jazz is the UFO guy for Salem Media. So we're going to talk to him on Thursday. Next week, Monday's Labor Day. We're taking that off. We will do shows all next week. The following week after that, that would be September 9th through 12th. We're taking the whole week off because I am going to Niagara Falls. I've never been there before. I've had the pleasure of traveling all over the world, living a few places too. Never seen it. Never seen Niagara Falls. Now I'd love to tell you that I'm taking my wife. It's be a romantic week. I'm going with 14 other people, all members of her family. Now, this does not bother me because her family is a really, really good time. I enjoy these people immensely, so they know how to have fun. So yeah, it should be a fun week. But yeah, that's what we're doing. So anyway, I want to give a shout out right now to our sponsor, Kong News. And if you watched the show last Thursday, you know that I basically no Wednesday it was Wednesday. I screwed this commercial up. So let's start trying to do it. All right, this is the front page of Kong News in real time right now in the moment. Kong News is a news aggregator. So the deal is they don't actually write many stories themselves. They get news from other places, over 75 news sources every 3 hours, and this is all automated, which in this case is a good thing because there's most of the news aggregators are not automated, but there's one thing here Kong does that none of the rest of them can do for that reason. So every 3 hours, Kong servers go out onto the intertubes and go to their pre-assigned websites and get all the latest articles. Now the reason that's cool, and then it brings it back, and then it lays them all on the front page in reverse chronological order, and that's the key. So most news aggregators will list the stories from like Hot Air in chronological order, and then the stories from Breitbart or Fox News or wherever they're talking about, Daily Caller or whatever. Well, and lists them in their little silo in chronological order. Gawk News takes all these stories, all of them, hundreds of them, and lays them out on the front page in chronological order, regardless of the source. So you get a fantastic glimpse of the latest news from all sorts of different places. And yes, a lot of the times, especially with big news, there's more than one article on a particular story. But because they're written by different people in different places, the headlines and the pictures are always different, and you get a different take on it. It's really, really fantastic. So, and it bears repeating, this website, it's not only just free, it is free. You don't have to register, you don't have to subscribe, you don't have to log in. You just go there. It's at conk.com, conk.com. I used to work for this organization. It's a fantastic service. I can't recommend it enough. I use it constantly to prepare for this show. You check in on this once. If you're a news junkie, you'll be hooked. I keep saying it's a sexual experience for news junkies, and it is. So that's at conk.com. And also, as per their masthead here at the top, you can also get there by conk.news too, conk.news or conk.com. Either one works. So check that out if you get a chance. So, what's happening today? There's a headline in in the New York Times. Headline is "Joy is not a strategy," and that's what I use for the description on the headline for the show tonight at our affiliates. Joy is not a strategy. No shit. Now, this is starting. It's only been like 3 or 4 days. First of all, RFK signing on to the Trump campaign on Friday pretty much took the wind out of all the sales from the DNC convention. It's really amazing how that worked. It's also amazing how pissed off Democrats got by him doing this. His family has basically disowned him. Famous family too. I don't have to tell you. I mean, they're the closest thing we have to political royalty in the United States. Well, they've disowned him. I guess his wife, Cheryl Hines, is having a very hard time dealing with this, although she posted a very benign tweet about the support, family support, and all that sort of stuff. But she's having a hard time, and people are giving her a hard time for not standing up to him and insisting that don't do it. But you're not going to do that. He's a guy running for president, man, or he was. You're not running for president. You're the wife, and I hate to put it that way, but because people say that's sexist, but no, if the roles are reversed, it's the same thing. If your wife is running for president, you as a husband basically have no, you can give them some counsel, but you have no decision making process. That's what I think anyway. But the weird thing that happened on Thursday night at the convention, and we had our convention panel here, and once again we get very nice viewership. I want to thank you guys. They're a good bunch of guys. They're pretty funny too. That is, everyone thought Beyonce was going to show up at the convention and perform. Now, and I'm not the only person has brought this up. If you have to do that, if you have to pull that sort of bait and switch just to get people to watch, you're in pretty bad shape. And that seems to be, after the smoke is all cleared here in this giant smoke-filled convention room, that seems to be the takeaway from this whole thing is they're not doing well. And it's finally coming to roost that this woman has nothing between her ears. She doesn't. And it's funny now. I went to another dinner party last week. I talked about this too. I was on the week before. I went to a dinner party here in town, and like I said, I live in Minneapolis. It's one of the single most liberal cities in the United States. Matter of fact, the congressional district I'm sitting in our studio, is Ilhan Omar's congressional district. It's one of the 3 most liberal districts in the whole U.S. So everyone at the party, except me, is liberal. People at the party basically know I'm not liberal, but I just let people talk. I don't really interrupt. I don't try to counter a point. I don't and partly because I get a lot of feedback, get a lot of observation, frankly, for the show. I do. And here's the takeaway from the political conversation I heard this weekend, and that's the people who are the Democrats who are all supporting Kamala Harris. I got the distinct impression, although it was very subtle, I got the distinct impression that they know they're going to lose. There's a lot of I don't know how to put it in words, and I don't because I heard nothing direct at all. It's just I got that impression that everyone sitting around that very large table kinda come to the conclusion that this was already done. So, that's really interesting. Now the polling seems to indicate that too. Uh, James Carville is going on and on about the fact you can't underestimate Trump because he's always polled low, and Trump says that too, that he's always polled low, and that's very true. He's always polled low. Matter of fact, the only real reasonable um, polling service that has correctly um, estimated Trump's influence in the last 3 elections has been Rasmussen, and Rasmussen says he's up by 5, 7 points. So even though in all the other polls, they're pretty much tied, or he might be, or if someone's ahead, it's usually Trump. He might be ahead in the margin of error. Now that said, too, it's been brought up that in the battleground states, he seems to be clearly ahead. In other words, what it looks like right now is that the popular vote count will be extremely close, but Trump will run away with the electoral count. That's what it looks like right now. Now, I'm predicting that's what's going to happen. He's going to win the election. I'm saying that giving this prediction early for 2 reasons. One, RFK's Jr.'s endorsement, which, although it's going to be tiny, might make the difference between him winning and losing. That's what I think. It's yeah. I mean, it's only going to amount to 1 to 2% of the popular vote, but it still might make the difference between him winning and losing. And secondly, it's because Harris, has made a stupid mistake in not choosing Josh Shapiro as her running mate. That would have guaranteed Pennsylvania. And right now, everyone seems to think, and I do too, whoever wins Pennsylvania is going to win the election. And I think she will lose Pennsylvania, whereas otherwise she would have won, and she threw the election away. And I'm not the only person who's come to this conclusion either. There's a lot of people who have said this very thing. So it's going to be really interesting. I mean, okay, so we're more than 2 months out, but yeah, I just threw out my prediction. Let's see if I'm right. Um, yeah. Well, anyway, at the convention on Thursday night, people were really pissed off. Everyone thought Beyonce was going to perform, and it's really true. It's a bait and switch. One of the organizers of the DNC basically admitted that the reason they did that, they floated that rumor, is to get people to stick around and watch because they're afraid people on TV were going to start tuning out, which I guess did happen. The ratings for the DNC were not stellar. They were okay. They were not bad, but they weren't fantastic either. And so, I mean, that did work. Apparently, it worked. People did stick around because they thought Beyonce was going to perform. You also made a whole bunch of people really pissed off. And as I said, if you have to do that sort of pull that sort of stunt to get people to stick around, maybe something's not working, you know? I don't know. Anyway, Kennedy endorsed Trump on Friday, and today Tulsi Gabbard endorsed Trump, which is not really much of a surprise, but still, I mean, she's still now. The interesting thing about those 2 people, and I've said this before, and I think I said this during one of our panel discussions. Although I on policy, specific policy, I have large disagreements with both of them. I don't know if they're intense, but they're large. But I would trust both of those people with the nuclear suitcase. I would. I trust the judgment of both of those people, like, implicitly, even though, yes, RFK has said some wacky things, well, hell, I have too, but the problem is a lot of my wacky things I've said have come true. I haven't kept score with RFK. He has a problem with vaccines, not just COVID. vaccines in general. And it's hard to on the whole, it's hard to for me to get over the fact that vaccines have been on the whole very helpful to society. Not entirely. I mean, yeah, sometimes things go wrong. And also, this has to be pointed out because it was just really a sham. I can't tell you about the original COVID shots, which in my opinion seem to have been effective, but the booster shots, bullshit. The Cleveland Clinic determined, and they surveyed like 50,000 people. It was an enormous survey. They concluded that you were more likely to get COVID if you had a booster shot than if you didn't. Well, that's massive failure. I'm not about to go on record and saying that the booster shots are actually harmful to people, although there are many people who think that. That might be true, but they certainly didn't work. That's the thing. We basically have empirical evidence they were pointless. They did not work at all. Well, that's a lot of fun. How much money did Big Pharma get from the government for that? I mean, it's for pointless shit, you know? It's like so the thing with RFK, all right, I gotta talk about this for a second. I'm getting off the beaten track here, but still, I think this is an important thing. So you understand Robert F. Kennedy Jr. lost both his uncle and his father to murder. They were both assassinated. John F. Kennedy, November 1963. Robert F. Kennedy, July 1968. Especially Robert F. Kennedy Sr.'s shooting and murder is one of the weirdest fucking murders ever propagated in America. I mean, it looks completely like an open and shut case. Here's a guy named Sirhan Sirhan. He's in the pantry walking toward RFK. He's holding up a pistol. He gets 3 feet away from him and pulls the trigger. And you're thinking, well, okay, he killed RFK, right? And it'd be easy to think that, wouldn't it? Really easy, really easy. The coroner, Thomas Noguchi, the coroner of Los Angeles County, he concluded, and it's never been changed. His conclusion is that Robert F. Kennedy was killed by a gunshot about 3 or 4 inches away from his right ear. Right? Now, Sirhan's standing 3 feet in front of him and pulls the trigger. And the gun did go off. Everyone does know that. I mean, it's like there's no film or still shot of the actual shooting. There's no photography. But there's about 40, 50 people in this little room. And everyone saw him do this and heard it happen. And he did pull the trigger. The gun did go off. But he was standing in front of RFK, not behind him. And also, he was standing 3 feet away, not 3 inches. It's a very, very strange thing. So, what happened immediately after that? This was in the basement of the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, and this is my personal tie to this is I lived right across the street from the Ambassador Hotel for many years, and I spent a lot of time in that hotel. It was basically my hangout place. There are a couple bars there that I went to regularly. And also, my post office was in the building. I went there almost every day. I never did. I kind of wanted to, but I never did see the room where this actually happened. And they tore the hotel down in I think 2006, and supposedly they preserved the paneling in this room because it's a very weird thing. So, Rosie Greer was an NFL football player at that time, and I think he was actually RFK's bodyguard. I think that was his role. I don't think he was just there as a spectator. But anyway, so Sirhan pulls the trigger, gun goes off. Kennedy's been shot. He's on the floor. Rosie and a couple other people tackle this guy. They bring him over and they slam him onto a rollaway. It was this room is a pantry for the kitchen. One of those aluminum rollaway carts, and he's slamming his hand against the cart table, trying to get him to let go of the gun. And apparently, every time he does this, the gun fires. It's an 8-round clip, and so the gun empties 7 times. So he He shot at Kennedy once, and 7 times Greer is pounding his hand against this table, and the gun goes off every single time. And then finally, they realize the clip is empty and just beats the crap out of him. Okay, fine. So the gun had 8 bullets in the clip, right? When the police came down to do the investigation, they found 13 bullet holes in the walls. Huh? What? 13? And even if 1 or 2 were from like 30 years ago, it's like, what? Got eight bullets in a clip, and also 1 bullet was in RFK's body. So, and there's 13 bullet holes in the wall. What the hell? This is the thing. This is the craziest. There's, from what I understand, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the guy of the moment right now, he has personally talked to Sirhan, and is still locked up in prison. He went to his prison cell and talked to him, and he said he has concluded that Sirhan did not shoot his father. Now, okay, maybe Sirhan's a master of manipulation, maybe he is, but considering all the other evidence, it's hard to come to the conclusion that he did. There's a theory, and it's a fairly strong one, that Sirhan was kind of trained or programmed as a Manchurian candidate type shooter. In other words, it was his job to be the public patsy of a private execution, basically. That's the way that. So he was somehow, because Sirhan he's always contended, and apparently does to this day, that he does not remember the shooting. He doesn't remember doing it. Matter of fact, he says he remembers going to the hotel and meeting a very attractive woman in a polka dot dress, and from that point forward, he can't remember anything. Now, that's really interesting too, because there's several people at the hotel who were in like the alleys and stuff like that. It was a big complex, who saw this woman in a white polka dot dress, and a couple guys run out, and she's yelling, "We shot him! We shot him!" Well, she didn't shoot him, or did she? That's the question. What's going on here? This is a very, very strange thing. This is as opposed to to John F. Kennedy's murder or assassination, which is getting less strange every day. It's becoming more and more likely to me and to a lot of other people that the CIA did that, or at least conspired to have it done with the Bob and maybe some other people. It's starting to look that, and also that's becoming more and more of an obvious thing too. I mean, I have seen the film. You've seen the Zapruder film. It's a shaky 18 frames per second movie that Abraham Zapruder shot on the front of the grassy knoll while the limousine was going on, and he ended up getting the shooting on film, the actual shooting. It's extremely grainy. It's extremely jerky. There's because it's only 18 frames a second, there's frames missing, or at least to the modern eye anyway. So somebody this is only like a couple of years ago, and if I'm right, this was not AI. There's no AI involved in this, and I can't show this because this is a licensed clip, so I can't show it on the show. It ran digital processing and completely cleaned the film up. So if you watch the film as is, you think, you basically see the shot explode Kennedy's head, and oh my God, he's dead. But if you see the cleaned up version of it, it's plainly obvious he was shot from the front. Plainly obvious. And the forensic detective for the main forensic manager for the Dallas Police Department, who was there like 25 years. I can't remember her name, but she had endless access and infinite access to the actual evidence they had on hand. She said she looked at it several times and came to the conclusion, not the film, not just the film, all the evidence. She said she was 100% certain that Kennedy was shot from the front. Now, there's a whole bunch of people who tell you that Lee Harvey Oswald was the only shooter, and that every day there seems to be more evidence corroborating evidence that's not the case. Matter of fact, in my scenario, although um, the scenario I've cooked up by my meta research, and a whole bunch of other people's research, I've concluded that there's no actual even proof that Oswald was one of the shooters. He was definitely involved. There's no doubt about that. He almost certainly brought at least one of the guns into the Texas School Depository, because by this theory, and it's kind of been corroborated by acoustic evidence, there were 3 shooters, one in the Texas School Depository where everyone thinks uh, Harvey Oswald was, and maybe he was, one in the building, the Daltex building, which is across the street, and then one on the grassy knoll, which I become convinced is a guy named James Files. He claims to have done it, and there's corroborating evidence that says that he did it. So, also his detail is his account is very, very detailed, and all the details match. So, that's why he has convinced me that he actually did it. If he's lying, he's a very, very, very good liar. But any rate, my point is that I think that at some point, I think there will be a general consensus of what that story is, and it will not be that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. It won't. But this thing with RFK, his father, oh Jesus, I have no freaking idea. I mean, whoever did, if Saran didn't do this, this is like one of the most meticulously, perfectly planned murders ever. I mean, how do you rectify that? Guy standing 3 feet in front of a guy, shoots him in the head, and yet the coroner says no, he was shot from the back at point blank range. I don't know. Whatever. So I brought that up because, I think, and a lot of other people think, that RFK's endorsement and pulling out of the race might make the difference between Trump winning and losing. And then we haven't even got into possible election tampering interference. The Democrats are already being caught doctoring polling places. It's like, Jesus Christ. So from what I understand, Laura Trump is one of the co-chairs of the Republican National Committee now. And my impression is, it's never been stated, but her specific job is to make certain that they don't cheat, that the Democrats don't actually cheat the count of the election. I think the other guy, whose name I can't remember, the other co-chair, he's in charge of everything else. He's actually running it. Her job is to specifically make certain no one cheats. So supposedly they have hired 100,000, is it attorneys or just volunteers, to oversee the count all over the country. 100,000 people. Now, is it in Detroit, where they already decided? There's a law in Michigan that says you have to, at a polling place, you have to have an equal number of registered Democrats or Republicans working the polling. And supposedly they've already busted that 7-1. It's 7 times Democrats to 1 time Republicans. So the RNC is suing already, and they're on top of it. I think I've said this, I'm going to say this, that I think they cheated on the 2020 election. It may not. There was certainly what you'd call election interference, in the sense that some of these election laws were changed in the guise of COVID, in quote unquote an emergency. And there's at least a dozen states. The last count I heard is 17, where it was illegal. It was unconstitutional to change the voting rules, and they were changed anyway. So there's that, and then you also have the thing about the fact that, I actually think they stuffed the ballot boxes. I really do, in 4 crucial counties. Now, I don't Philadelphia is Philadelphia County. Phoenix is Maricopa County. I don't know if Detroit is Detroit County or not. And one other place, where am I thinking? Is it Milwaukee? I can't remember. I think in those 4 places, they actually did screw with the vote count, and that made the difference. And you have to understand that it was it was and the vote count itself was extremely close. Trump basically lost the election by 40,000 votes, so, 100 million people voted. More than that, I think, was it 150? It was a huge amount. So, anyway, that's my prediction. I do think Trump's gonna win. I think that the election right, there are people saying that right now he's on track for an electoral blowout. I don't know if that's true. But I could still see him winning and losing the popular vote just like he did in 2016. I could see that happening. I wanna talk about this, I mentioned this last week, and this is like 2 weeks old now, but it still bears repeating, and Joe Rogan was still talking about the fact that this one it was an offhand comment made during Stephen Colbert's, uh, late night talk show on CBS, and he's interviewing Caitlin Collins from CNN, and he says in the course of the interview, he says to Collins, he said, "Well, you folks at CNN, you're an objective news organization, and the audience laughs, and it's not just a little titter, it's a loud laugh. They laugh at this, and he looks at it like, "What are you laughing what are you laughing at?" And she says, "Is that supposed to be a laugh line?" And he said, "Well, it wasn't supposed to be one, but I guess it is." He's kind of taken aback by the fact that everybody found that funny, and I kinda look at this as a seminal moment in American culture. The fact that it appears that the majority of people now have figured out that the whole media landscape is completely full of crap. And that's the way I take that. That and it is. I mean, I don't have to tell you. I can complain a bit about politicians lying, but there are politicians and politicians lie, and I expect that. I don't expect the media to lie, and they've been lying through their teeth for years. And I got the impression, and we brought this up on Thursday night's show in the panel discussion about the fact I'm starting to get the impression that the mainstream media is kind of getting tired of carrying the water for the Democrats. That they're kind of getting tired of it. Just this very headline in the New York Times today: "Joy is not a strategy." Uh, the the mainstream media, they are simultaneously fawning over um, Kamala Harris, but they're starting now to actually kind of like dig their finger in the rib a little bit and poke around. And well, that's a good thing if it's good, but I'm still kind of surprised too because I mean, I'm also surprised, once again, this gets back to another social gathering I went to, and now I'm talking about 2 months ago, after Joe Biden's debate with Donald Trump. It was astonishing to me how many people were surprised by what happened. There were people who was totally blown away by this. They had no idea that Biden was just infirmed. And now, granted, I read like 100 news stories every day. I have to do this. Excuse me. And and I talk to a lot of people who are in the news business. So, but it wasn't a surprise to anybody that I professionally know. Nobody. I talk to Jazz Shaw, I talk to David Strom all the time, Ed Morrissey over at Hot Air, Jennifer Oliver O'Connell at Red State, she's on them once a month. Uh, nobody in the conservative news business was the least bit surprised by this. Matter of fact, we had a panel on the night of that debate. And so, okay, the panel went on right after the debate was done, and we all mentioned the fact, yeah, he screwed this up, but nobody was like, "Oh my god, did you?" It's like, and I had friends who were like that, who were basically spitting, atrocities. They could not. They were just shocked by what they saw, the fact that our president could be that feeble, and and then I think about the fact, well, if they're shocked, that means that the mainstream media they succeeded in their job of covering this up because it shouldn't have been covered up. I don't have to tell you that. So now they have got another problem. And well, if she gets elected, then we all have a problem. but the woman that they put in his place was one of the least liked and least competent vice presidents ever. I mean, she was basically considered a running gag, and now they're trying to build her up into like the next coming of Barack Obama. And I don't think this is going to work. So today, she is she agreed to the debate terms with Trump for September 10th, which we will have. I'll be off here. I'll be in Niagara Falls, so I won't be able to comment on anything. And then she tried to change them, and it's pretty obvious to me. I thought I saw this coming. I did that she's trying to change them because they're scared shitless of her doing this. She's not appeared unscripted in any locale or any medium whatsoever. Not basically just since she started, but basically even as vice president. She did a couple of sit down interviews. I think I heard that one of them was the last one was in December or something like that. It's like, I mean, what she cannot riff off the top of her head because she's clueless. She doesn't know what's going on. And not only that, there's no doubt about this. She is basically a confirmed Marxist. Her father taught Marxism at Berkeley. No shit. I don't know if you know that, but that's true. He taught Marxism. He was a teacher. He taught communism at University of California, Berkeley. That's what he did. That was his job. So, geez, I wonder why she's one, Like, I read an article today, and maybe I should put this on our blog. I gave a guy named John Schindler is his name. I'm going to try to get him on the show. Um, he's a counterintelligence operative and worked for the CIA for years and years. I mean, his basic contention is um, that what people are seeing and what the right has been talking about and being labeled as conspiracy theory for years is actually true, and that is that Barack Obama's goal was to turn America into a socialist country. And it's a very long article and extremely detailed, and I found it very fascinating. And I know a lot of people who think Barack Obama was. I've said he's Frank Sinatra of American politics. I mean, you won't find a smoother guy, and he's extremely intelligent. What he lacks is actually talent, and what I mean by that is, like most presidents, and I'm not just Democrats, most presidents can't actually do anything. I don't know if you've noticed this. I mean, did a survey. All right, if you're going to start the modern era in 1960. So with the start of John F. Kennedy, we've had only 5 presidents out of what 17 that have actually been what I would say were competently disruptive, and those would be Kennedy, Nixon, Reagan, Clinton, Bill Clinton, and Trump. That's the list. Now we had Jeff Shepard on the show. You can call me up, We had Jeff Shepard on the show last week or the week before. He's the guy who did the recent documentary on Watergate, and he was in Watergate. He was deputy counsel for Nixon himself for Watergate. He was involved in the whole thing, and he knew all the players. He literally had, he knew all of them personally. And he has said, well, it's really interesting because I did pin him down on this. His contention is that Watergate was a masterful plot by the Democrats to get Nixon out of office. But my problem with that whole thing is that, well, did it start with actual break-in? Because you in the break, if you're breaking into a office building, you're basically relying on getting caught. And what if you don't get caught? Then nothing happens, right? Understand? Okay, so now he's put me on to 2 other authors. He mentioned, Shepard mentioned this during the interview, and I've been looking at these guys. One of them, I'm gonna try to get him on the show too. There's 2 authors that contend that, yeah, the whole thing was a setup right from the start. Even the break-ins were part of the setup. And I keep thinking, well, how could you like I said, what if you don't get caught? What if the security guard doesn't do his job? But there's two interesting things about the Watergate break-in. Now, I'm going back to 1972. I don't know how many of you are even freaking alive. I have no idea. Uh, but what most people don't realize is when those guys they were called the plumbers is what their internal name for them. I think 5 or 6 guys that got caught on the DNC headquarters in the Watergate building. That was actually the second time they broke into the office. They broke in 2 weeks earlier, and ostensibly, they broke in again because they had bugged an important telephone, and that the bug on that telephone failed, so they went in to replace it, supposedly. And then, Shepard brought this up, and I had heard this before too. They taped the door open so they could come in and out. I think it was out of the parking lot or something like that, in the most obvious way possible. In other words, normally you'd put a little piece of tape over the little latch, so it wouldn't like latch shut. They had tape running up and down the side of the door, duct tape. Like, in other words, you, you couldn't not see it. So Frank Wills was the guy, the watchman on duty that night, and he did one tour, and he saw the tape. He took it off. He did his rounds, and then he came back on the tape. But they put the tape back, and at that time he said, "Oh well, screw this. It's like something's going on here." And then he caught the people, and so what Shepard is saying is that, and he's not saying this because he says he does not think it goes back that far or forward or he does not think the plot included the actual break-in, but there's people who do, and he says there's some evidence to indicate that maybe it did. So, which I find kind of funny, but that's it's like so yeah. So they want to get rid of Nixon because Nixon was extremely effective as a president. Matter of fact, if it wasn't for Watergate, I'm sure Nixon would have gone on in history as one of our greatest presidents. There's no doubt about it. He did a whole bunch of stuff that stuck. He did one thing that definitely didn't stuck, as a matter of fact, which is uh, conducive to the current situation right now, and that is he put in price controls, and they failed miserably. No shit. No, you think so? Now, after doing that for 100 years, and that's the last time we basically tried it on a federal level in the U.S. No one should be proposing this again. It's like everyone knows this doesn't work. And there's very, very solid economic theory reasons why it doesn't work. Everyone knows why it doesn't work. And yet, bless her heart, she says, where you're getting gouged by major corporations. No, you're not. They created inflation, dolts. It's like, Christ almighty. I mean, I just don't, it's like, they won't own up to it. I got an email from Tim Conaway today. He says I'm using this term incorrectly, and I know he's right. He didn't even have to, and that the term is gaslighting. So the term comes from a movie from the 1940s. The movie's called Gaslight, and it's about a guy who tries to convince his wife that she's going crazy. Well, she isn't, but he's trying to convince her about that because of he's having an affair or wants to kill her or something. I can't remember what it is. But at any rate, the point is Tim's point, and he's right, is that gaslighting is not just lying. It's a manipulative lie to convince the other person that they should doubt their own sanity or doubt their own thinking. That's what gaslighting actually means. And yeah, maybe people aren't using it correctly, and he's right, and maybe I'm not either. So, all right, kudos to him. He's absolutely correct. But that said, they are trying to convince the public that the economy is great, and it just isn't. That's the thing. I mean, they go on and on about this. They're wrong. And pretty much everybody who has a brain knows it. This is yeah, I don't know. I throw up my hands. Dennis Quaid is starring in the movie Reagan, which comes out on Friday in theaters, I think. I think they've done previews already. And he's supporting Trump for president. And this is his quote. Trump may be an asshole, but he's my asshole. Yeah, that's pretty much, that's the thing. I'm really tired of hearing about people saying, we can't elect this guy. He's really rude. Yeah, he's rude. Yeah, I admit it. He's rude. He's rude. He's petty, vindictive. He is. However, Biden's even more vindictive, and he won't own up to it. The thing about Trump is that he's basically decided to embrace his own flaws, And there's something really admirable about that. There is, you know. God bless him. He's an imperfect human being. He is. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you he's a saint. I'm not. I don't know a single person, Trump supporter, who actually thinks that either. Yeah, everyone we know he's rude. Yeah, we know he's petty. Or that he can be. You know, uh, no, don't. No, we don't need this lecture from the left again. You know, whereas they support people who are quote unquote joyful people who are really incompetent. So who do you want? Do you want a rude man who knows what he's doing, or a really really nice guy who's completely incompetent? And that is for a lot. I do know there's a lot of people who choose the latter. There's a lot of people who want a nice guy. They don't care what kind of job he does. Not for me. No. And one other thing that's going on tonight. This is really interesting. Oh geez, what do I need to say that? Everything I talk about, I think everything I talk about is interesting. Not because it's coming out of my mouth, but that's the reason we do the show. So the CEO of Telegram, the social networking service, was arrested in France today because the French government says he is not doing enough to police criminality on that platform. Now, some people are taking this to indicate that he's not socially filtering or censoring speech on the platform the way the French government wants him to. And Elon Musk, RFK, there's a whole bunch of people um, leading into this. Who are there's this Vindman guy who went after Trump years ago. He says that Musk should be careful because he's going to be next. And this is the other thing too. Now, I've talked about this here before. There's a new law now in the UK, whereas it's not just illegal for British people to say quote unquote hateful things online. If you're an American citizen and you're in the United States and you say hateful things about what's going on in Britain, they can have you extradited to Britain and put you on trial. Now that hasn't happened yet, but supposedly it's theoretically possible, and they've mentioned that they can do this, and that's just the most disgusting thing ever. Because you have to understand, folks, this is really important to know. We are the only country on the planet that has something akin to the First Amendment. That we have a constitutional guarantee of free speech. No other country in the world does. The Brits don't. The Canadians don't. Nobody. The most cultured countries in the world that you think they don't have actual guarantee of free speech. Only we do. And God knows people try to take it here all the time. But at least we have courts so we can have some redress. There's there's free speech is not guaranteed in France, Britain, or any of these other countries. And so therefore they can put people on trial for saying stuff that the government says is harmful. Now, whether whether it's actually harmful or not, I'm guessing it isn't. Because I personally don't think any speech is harmful. There's always the example you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, and somebody said, "Well, the test of that is immediacy. If you yell this, there's a chance that within 1 or 2 minutes, a bunch of people are going to get trampled to death, right? But online, if you talk about the fact that I think that Pierre Trudeau's or Justin Trudeau's a moron or whatever, there's no immediacy to that. But you just hurt his feelings, so now we're going to put you in jail. It's evil. That's evil, but it's going to happen. All right, we're gonna play the bumper music, and we're gonna do part 3 right now. Here goes. Okay, so like I was telling you, this is part 3 of the show. We talk about all the weird stuff. News Nation did a 2-hour special last night. Actually, it was 2 1-hour specials back to back on Lou Elizondo's new book called Eminent, and he worked for the UFO office at the Pentagon, and about the fact that he comes right out and says it's not. At this point, the Pentagon actually admits that UFOs are real. That's not a problem. It's the question is they won't comment, or they say they don't know who's flying them or whatever. And Elizondo comes straight out and says, yeah, they know who's flying them. Extraterrestrials are flying them. Um, and it's important that we address this because we don't know the uh, motivation or intent of the extraterrestrials. And in that sense, they're a threat to national security. And that's really true. Now, Elizondo brings up, and he brought this up in the interview. I've read the book, and he says in the book too that there's absolutely no evidence that they're benevolent, and that's actually correct. He's right. Now, I could counter that and said, well, if they really meant us harm, they probably would have done it already. Because what's to stop them? Their technology is eons ahead of ours. I mean, they've demonstrated that already with all the stuff they've been flying around in front of the Navy and stuff like that. We know that these whatever they got going on, quantum drive entanglement or whatever the hell it is way above what we got currently. So that's the only possible thing I would say. And that is, I think if they wanted to do us harm, they would have done it already. But that said, I can't argue with Elizondo either. There is no evidence that they're benevolent. In other words, there's no evidence of the opposite. He brought up in his book a couple places, and I think if you in the large scheme of the UFO picture, these are the number of these incidences are relatively minor, although maybe the instances themselves weren't about where UFOs and their occupants that have been seen have attempted to uh, harm people. There's also the thing, and he also brings this up, that it's probably unintentional, but a lot of people have been harmed by coming in contact with unidentified flying objects, and sometimes the beings flying them, and that may be an unintentional thing because of radiation and that sort of thing. Any rate, this aired last night. Jazz Shaw is coming on Thursday. We're going to talk about it. Jazz knows most of the people involved in this firsthand. Elizondo in the book drops a whole bunch of names. That's the other thing that impressed a lot of people. He names a whole bunch of people, and he obviously had permission from them to put them in the book. Very famous people, but he puts them on record. So we'll talk with Jazz about that on Thursday. Now, meanwhile, those guys, the two astronauts, they're not guys. One's a woman, one's a man, one's a woman. They flew the Boeing Starliner up to the International Space Station. It's a resupply mission, and they're supposed to be there for 8 days and can come back. They've been there for what, 4 months, and they got another 6 months to go because that Starliner, that spaceship they flew up there, doesn't work. So now, okay, so this came out this weekend. Okay, the government is going to hire Elon Musk SpaceX to go up and rescue them, basically. Now, they're not doing bad. There's plenty of food and oxygen up there. They got plenty of shit. And apparently they're having a good time. They're enjoying it. So there's nothing actually privy here. But what people don't know, what you probably don't know, is that the real problem of getting a SpaceX capsule up there to take them back is that because the Starliner is actually docked to the station right now, all the docks are full. So, so to open one up, they have to dump the Starliner into the atmosphere. So I don't know. Supposedly, NASA is going to try to fly it back under remote control, and this spacecraft is designed to do that, so that shouldn't be a problem. But if it is a problem, they're just going to burn it up. They're just going to need to eject it. They need to free up one docking station, and it turns out, yeah, it's the one. This ship doesn't fly. Let's do this one. So that's going to happen in February, and they're going to bring up more stuff there. So, and then this was this came up during my this weekend. Like I said, went to uh, um, dinner party, and somebody actually mentioned this, and that is the other thing is that the Starliner spacesuits aren't compatible with any other spacecraft. So not only do they have to, they all right, they're going to fly up this SpaceX capsule, which normally carries 6 people. So they're going to fly it up with a crew of 2. They normally do that with a crew of 4, but they have to have 2 seats empty because they have to also bring up 2 spacesuits because the astronauts can't use the spacesuits that they were originally issued to them. It's like what, nobody sits to figure this out. I mean, God Almighty, it's like our entire freaking the bureaucracy of America has completely screwed up everything. Now, I have a friend who works at no, I have a friend who has a brother who works at NASA, and the brothers told me, he's told me that that you remember that Apollo 11 thing we did in 1969 when we landed on the moon. He said we couldn't do that now. Now, supposedly they're going to do it in a couple of years. It's called Artemis. They're going back to the moon, but yeah, he said this was a few years ago. He told me they said, yeah, we couldn't do that anymore. What the fuck? What are you guys doing? Like you're just spending another $12 trillion of American money. That's like Jesus Christ. All right, this is really interesting. I don't know if you're a baseball fan. I'm only mildly so, but I do follow it a little bit. Danny Jansen I think it was tonight. He made Major League Baseball history by playing in the same game for 2 different opposing teams. So what happened is that this game, I think, goes back about a week or 2 weeks ago. They played it, and hold on a second. I gotta find out who this. I can't remember what teams these are. One moment. It's the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. So if I'm right, they played this game in Toronto a couple weeks ago, and the game was interrupted for rain, and so they were going to do a continuance. So, but in that meantime, in that 2 weeks, he was traded from the Blue Jays to the oh shit, what the hell am I doing? To the Red Sox. Yes, he was traded from the Blue Jays to the Red Sox. So now when they continue the game, when they pick back up where they left off, I think it was tonight, he's going to be on the other team. It's the first time in Major League history it's ever happened. That's kind of interesting. And you have to understand, baseball history goes back a whole long way. I mean, what's called the long ball era started in 1920. The live ball era started in 1904. So, I mean, it's like well over 100 years of stats. And then every time a major league team takes the field to play another major league team, more history is basically made. More stats are every single thing that happens is recorded. And it's been recorded for well over 100 years. It's really pretty amazing. There's an internal memo at Amazon Web Services. Excuse me. By one of the main guys over there that says that they think that within 2 years, AI will be able to do basically all computer coding for people. Now, this is the way this works. I'm a computer coder. I coded our website. I've done major projects. The thing is, especially now, and I explain to people, like I have in the last 10 years or so, I built some very very large website services for other people. And people say, well, how do you do that? So you need a bunch of coders. No, 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 no. You don't, because at this point, almost all code that can do anything has already been written. So the thing is, what you do is if you're a designer, an architect of a service, which is what my role was, you basically go out and you get all the code that's already been written. You just find it all, and then your job or the job of the people working for you is to stitch it all together. And that's usually not always, but usually relatively simple. So we're basically already doing this already. So, but this guy's saying that AI will make it to the point where that you won't even have to go out and get the code. Like, let's say you say, I want to put a shopping cart on my website, right? Now, that's been done a zillion times already. There's also a zillion different ways to do it. So you, as a designer, as the architect, have to know exactly how you want to implement it because that determines what kind of code you're going to use. But the point is that code already exists. Somebody's already written it somewhere, and usually it's posted, or like you can buy it, and now the code is actually pretty inexpensive to buy too. I mean, I did a website for somebody a few years ago, and literally the entire website. It's a very complex website is based on a program I bought for $20. You know? I bought and I highly customized it, but still, I bought it for $20. That's the point. So you're talking about, running major systems off of $20 worth of code, but it not only can be done, it's done regularly. So his point is, at some point in the next couple of years, I totally believe this because I know how this works, and that is nobody's gonna have to write any code hardly ever. That the AI, you basically if you say your AI, I need a shopping cart for this website, and you list the parameters, all sort of stuff, and it will generate the code for you. Also, depending on what programming language you're using, there's only so many ways to do X thing in a certain programming language. Anyway, my point is, this guy's not. He's absolutely right. This is what's going to happen, and people are saying this is going to put a whole bunch of computer programmers out of business, and yeah, it will. Not. I don't think as many as people think is going to, but it will. It will put a lot of people out of business because yeah, the code already exists at some point. And so right now, if you follow this at all, and I don't want to bore you, um, the primary code used on the web to program websites is called PHP, and PHP was designed specifically for website coding because because of the way the websites interact with servers. It's hard to explain. Before that, it was a language called Perl. Perl was not designed for the web for the web, and PHP came up and very quickly took over because it was. So, and not it's I could get in the weeds here. I'm just not going to. Anyway, my point is, if every pretty much anything anybody's ever wanted to do on the web ever has been written at least somebody in PHP. So I bring this up because this guy's absolutely right. All right, I got one more thing here. There's a guy who says he's a time traveler and from 2582. I think he's on TikTok or Reddit. I can't remember where. He says that today, um, extraterrestrials are going to land on Earth and announce themselves. Now, it's 11:08 Central Time, which means it's already in the East Coast. It's already after midnight. I don't think it happened. I don't think. I have the funny feeling that guy's not actually from the future. I don't know how much time you spend online. These guys are all over the place, and it is astonishing how many followers they will get. Like this guy, I think if I'm right, is more than 200,000 of them. There's another guy who claimed something similar a couple of years ago. He had like 50,000 or something. His date came and went too. I guess they're not from the future. Like who would have thought? Who would have thought that? I don't know. Not that I think that's impossible, but there's a reason it says at the top of the show that I'm the king of conspiracies, folks. But like I said, the reason I stick to that is because most of the majority of the conspiracies I've illuminated have come true. So I'm sticking with my stories. So you guys didn't call. We'll be that way. See what I care. All right, we're taking off tomorrow and Wednesday. Both. We're taking both off. Jazz Show will be here on Thursday. We'll be off on Labor Day. and we got another week. I'll tell you. I will tell you. Try to tell you on Thursday who's coming up on next week. So I don't know yet. That was actually one of the reasons I took Wednesday off. I had to take Tuesday off. I took Wednesday off because and like I said at the top of the show, everyone's on vacation. No one wants to come on the inner tube and talk to me. No, they don't want to. So screw it. I just go on vacation too. I should have known better. But summer Labor Day is the unofficial end of summer. So God bless you. So I'm taking the next 2 days off. We'll see you on Thursday with Jazz Shaw. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie, and good night to you, wherever you are. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. Take care.